Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host tonight. I am the Assistant Director with NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, North Carolina. I appreciate you being here, all of you. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations and building community around the topic of mental health. Working at NAMI, I've had the privilege of meeting folks who just experience the very darkest side of life, and then they go on to light a candle somehow and to light candles for hundreds of other people as well. Each of our two guests tonight fall into that category very, very much so. Steve Bailey is the co-founder of Josh's Hope Foundation, which he and his wife established after their son was murdered in 2008 by a group of young men in Chapel Hill. Josh's Hope helps young adults with mental health and substance use challenges develop tools and skills needed to participate in life. Hopefully I summarized your mission pretty well. Their director of programs, Tripp Jarvis, is also with us. Tripp, who, like many of us, lives with a mental health condition, found his calling and a powerful recovery tool in his artwork. The iron sculptures he creates are huge and truly awesome, unique. We'll be talking with Steve and Tripp in just a moment. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview with our guests. Partway through, we'll show a video of the week, and then we'll spend time answering questions from you, members of our virtual studio audience on Facebook Live and on Zoom. First, we'll have a quick word from our sponsors. Thursdays with NAMI is funded in part by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Block Grant Fund. Such a mouthful, but we're so grateful for their guidance and support. And now, without any further ado, welcome Steve and Tripp.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you both have stories to tell, and we always like to hear that backstory first thing off the bat. So maybe you could tell us about yourselves in a nutshell, in whichever order you choose.
The nutshell is pretty cramped. That was a bad one, but no.
I liked
so,
it.
So I'm Tripp Jarvis, and I'm a sculptor. And I've been a sculptor since 1994 when I went to art school. But I've managed to show my work nationally and internationally. And you know, my primary thesis or idea behind art is that it does have healing qualities of the individual, as it can help the community and society as a whole. So that's my sculpture, and that's kind of my career. I also studied Tai Chi. I'm a father of two kids who live in Estonia. They're going to college there because they got dual citizenship. Their mom's from there. I lived there for 2 years, which was a great experience, and found my way back to Durham through, life. There's a series of, directions you take that you end up somewhere. And I ended up in Durham at Liberty Arts, and that's where me and Steve managed to meet up and connect. So, that's how I ended up here. As far as family history and stuff, I had some mental health issues in past family members in our history, but overall with the art and working with Josh's Hope, I do believe in the alchemy of things, of turning iron to gold, trauma and liberation, and things like that. So that's a little bit about me. So, Steve.
Hey, yeah, I'm Steve Bailey. My wife, Julie, and I have been married since 1976. She had a career in public relations, and my background has mainly been in accounting, business management, and construction project management. Our experiences were not geared toward anything to do with mental health until we adopted 3 children in 1996 from the foster care program. It was, and it was very quickly apparent to us that we had to educate ourselves about all things related to childhood mental illness. We were a little surprised at how hard it was to get assessments, connect with providers, navigate the system of care, and so on. But those experiences and our desire to be advocates led my wife, who be hired by OPC area program, to start the Family Advocacy Network in 2000. That was a program under the Mental Health America of the Triangle. As a result of her starting that program, I became a volunteer and participated in the educational programs that she developed. The vestiture of the mental health system in North Carolina caused us and a lot of other people to suffer. We believe you can't have good mental health. You can't have good health without good mental health, but our system continues to be designed to stigmatize and penalize people living with mental health challenges. So with all the challenges facing those with mental health and substance use issues, I believe that we all need to work as hard and long as we can to change things. Julie and I are at retirement age, and we hope that there's a generation behind us that's going to be prepared to take over when we can't do these things any longer, and hope that maybe some of the things we've done will make a difference.
All right. Well, I have to believe they will, in light of the mission and the programs that you have going. I was able to touch base with both Steve and Tripp last summer. I saw a sculpture garden that Tripp had created on the property of Josh's Hope Foundation, and that's where I met Steve. And so yeah, I've seen the beautiful physical culmination of that, and I know you're touching a lot of lives. So this first question goes to Steve, and Tripp, if you have follow up on some of the questions, you're welcome to. Steve, you lost a child in the most difficult way I can imagine, a violent death. And I'm so sorry Josh went through that, and that your family had to endure that and recover from that, a cruel loss like that. How did you get your bearings afterward, and how did you decide to start Josh's Hope?
I'm not sure that a parent ever gets their bearings again after something like this. We were fortunate. We had a great support system, both with each other and family and friends. Julie and I were emotionally and sometimes physically paralyzed by what happened. And I even sort of lost a year that I can't remember much of what went on. Julie's work as a family advocate at the same time kept pulling us in the direction of needs of other families who were experiencing some serious issues of their own at the time. So after Josh's death, we started dissecting everything that went wrong in his life. Losing benefits at 18, lack of appropriate services, unforgiving programs, absence of positive, appropriate education and socialization activities. Then after hearing from some other parents with adult kids who are also at high risk of something similar, we felt that we had to come up with something to engage these young adults to keep them from going with the wrong crowd and getting exploited like Josh was, or worse. So we came up with Josh's Hope to teach vocational skills, provide therapeutic supports, creative expression, offer emotional support to parents, as well as free community workshops, non-failure, very forgiving program, and that's where we are.
Well, I love that what I'm hearing you describe, among other things, is radical acceptance. And I think that's so needed in our culture in general, but especially with young people with special needs. It's so hard to find.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for all that you do for young people and for your community. And so Tripp, you've been very open about your own experiences with trauma, mental health challenge, recovery. Can you share some of your story with us?
Yeah. So my story starts at freshman year, after my freshman year in college, and then it goes forward and backwards at the same time. So my first real experience with mental health issues was I had a psychosis at the age of 19. It was the summer after my freshman year in college. And it came about by a conglomerate things of elements. I had developed kind of a reckless use of LSD and stuff like that. Mainly because in high school, I was in a very intensive springboard tower diving career. We did 40 hours a week in the summer. And it was very intense. There was a lot of injury. And I quickly didn't like it, but kind of felt forced to do it for many, many years. And so I was pretty angry at my dad, my coach. And so I just needed an alternate world. So I just started eating godless amounts of LSD and stuff. And then with that, during my psychosis, my first psychosis, when I was on, I began to have memories of being sexually abused when I was younger. They just, in the heat of the psychosis, they floated up. I had very clear memories of things happening then. And, through the years, after I talked with my counselor and stuff, that had produced some sexual repression on, my teenage years. So with all that and a good dose of anger and confusion, it was a cocktail for a breakdown. And during that experience, my world was completely destroyed. I mean, it's hard to explain what it's like when you go from one point, like in psychosis, everything has meaning, deep revelatory meaning. The painting behind your head, Peg, would have all these implications and stuff. And then once you're broken down, everything's dry and empty. And I was pretty ashamed. And so it took many years to kind of grow out of that, and I did the only thing that I could do to keep concentration was art. And my parents weren't going to let me go back to my first college because, I'd probably just end up where I was. So I ended up going to East Carolina and studying art. And slowly, without even trying to, it became the path to my healing and finding me a place in the world again, giving me an identity, giving me a purpose. And a lot was just, working through the issues and problems with my hands, actually physically shaping stone, melting iron. Those things were a physical alteration. And when I came out of my psychosis, so for some reason, I always had the belief in transformation through the fire, or that, I don't know if it's the test of the warrior or whatever, but somehow I knew that experience, that I could use that experience to help others. And then that would help the community. And then maybe something as crazy as psychosis ends up being a catalyst to create a better society, because, my direction changed and it went from self-absorption to, a balance of individual self-care and care for others. So that's kind of my experience with it. So, I was young. I was about 12 when I had the sexual abuse, and we don't know how many times it happened, but it was by a neighbor that was close and everything. So, but yeah, that's pretty much pretty much where and then I've been in counseling for 20 years. I go weekly to a counselor. He's great. He lets me pay him in art. So
That sounds like a win-win.
yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you for your courage. If you check out Tripp's website, and there's a link in the chat and on Facebook as well in the comments section, you can see his artwork and you can have a look. He's the subject of 2 films.
Just one. One's a trailer. The other trailer, the documentary is Temple of the Heart, and it's on the website, and that's about more of the trauma and how iron casting helped that. So that's what the film's about. So
it's a wonderful film, and you're very courageous to share your story in that way and help so many other individuals, so many people experience sexual abuse, so many of us. And I think men in particular need to have that space opened up for them, to realize that it's strong to talk about your experience. It takes a lot of courage. So thank you for doing that. And circling back to Steve, maybe you could tell us about the foundation's mission and some of your programs.
Sure. Our overreaching mission is to, quote, bridge gaps for young adults 18 to 35 who live with a mental health condition or a substance disorder or a combination of both. And by gaps, what we specifically mean are gaps between the treatment system, family relationships, community engagement, opportunities to learn useful skills, increase self-confidence, and possibly find appropriate employment. We've offered a few different programs to target different skills since we started in 2010. But of course, the pandemic caused us to restructure and streamline what we do. And now we've narrowed down to 2 programs. We have Family Hope and Tools for Hope. And everything we do is headed up under those two programs. Family Hope is a parent component, offering support, educational workshops to parents, siblings, extended family members, caregivers. The Tools for Hope teaches specific skills in woodworking, and now with Tripp here, we've added welding and plasma cutting. We've got some agricultural work going on out here at the farm, beekeeping, nutrition, community outreach, personal life skills, social development. These are all things that we try to focus on with the participants that come through our program or come to Josh's Hope. This year, we hope to add some other items like pottery and glass fusion, and with the pandemic and Tripp coming on at the time that he did, we were able to restructure some things a little bit so that I think that we'll be more, that we'll have a better opportunity to provide the things we want to this population.
Mm. Well, it sounds similar to NAMI in that you look at the individual, but also the whole family. And that's such an important part of creating a system where success can happen. So about how many kids do you serve?
Well, participants we serve, it varies. Right this minute, we have 7 that I'm
Yeah, I think you're right.
in this particular program. Now, we also do some other programs that are not really part of what we're doing here at the farm with Tools for Hope. And all in all, between the families we serve and the young adults we have here at Tools for Hope and our other program, we serve somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 200 families or people a year. But it's in all of our endeavors, not just this one.
That's fabulous. You're reaching so many lives. So Tripp, maybe you could tell us about the work you do in particular and some of the young people you've met,
Yeah.
participants that you've met.
Yeah. No. So for a long time, I almost went back to school to be an art therapist, but I still had 40,000 in my MFA, and I was really struggling. And then I found Steve and was able to fulfill that need at Josh's Hope. And working with the young participants, it's been pretty incredible. Not only do I get to, we talk about giving them tools for hope and tools to change, but it's actually through the physical manipulation of material that a lesson can be applied. If if for instance, I see somebody has a barrier, maybe they're afraid of a machine, I take them step by step so they get comfortable with it. And then, hopefully they can actually use that tool that they use to psychologically, uh, um, accept other challenges. Some of the participants, they, one of them has become my star welding pupil.
All right.
He's just found it, and seeing them get excited, engaged, and knowing they have somewhere they can be, where they can learn skills, where they can be accepted, and it's been also very educational for myself, because I may be wrestling with some things on a different level than they are, and when I'm trying then to get them to approach a tool a certain way, I see it how I need to apply it in my life. And watching them become a group has also been very rewarding. They're we have fun, and sometimes the jokes get carried away, and they're all really good at realizing, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, man, I didn't mean to, I overstepped, my joke, and I'm sorry," and they do a fist bump, and but it's a family, and they come on different. They were all on the same day, and now, like, my welding star is on a different day. You can tell they do care about each other, and that and some of them are very eager to help the others in their development. They're very eager to progress to further levels. So just watching them come out of a shell, some of them, or that you see a light in their eyes, that they say, "Okay, I get this. This is something that I can do." And then once you get that traction, then you can, when you're working with your hands and the tools, you physically are able to, learn not just technical skills, but other emotional skills of how to, um, adjust or build your life, or relationships and stuff. So that's been kind of my experience so far with the participants there. So yeah, it's been great. So I'm learning a lot, about myself too. So
Sure, that sounds great.
Yeah.
From my knowledge of you, you're so down to earth and also so skillful. So I have to think you're just a great fit for that role.
Well, it's a good fit for me too. So I intend to be there for a while.
Good.
I will tell you, Tripp has been very grounding for all of us, not just our participants, but for me and the others in the board. He's got that. He's had a difficult job because of COVID. We've had to stagger activities, and make sure people had masks. And I mean, it's just been a complicated job, but he's done a good job of grounding us.
Nice. A question has come up from Facebook. What ages do you serve?
Technically 18 to 35. Pre-COVID, we had some summer programs that took younger participants. We don't have very many participants over the age of 30 over the years. Most of our participants are between the ages of 18 and 25. And I suspect that will remain that way. But there's a reason for that. I'm not going to say this exactly right, but just to save time, in North Carolina, those between the ages of 18 and 24 have less opportunities than they do either before the age of 18 or after the age of 24. So that's sort of the gap we intended to fill, and that's sort of the gap that we see we are filling. There's other opportunities after those ages, and often the older people take advantage of some of the other options available to them.
I see. So in terms of programs, you've got the children's up to 18, and then you've got the adult, which is 25 or whatever plus.
Right. And yeah, that's correct.
Well, as you both have been describing your programs, it occurred to me that you're giving an experience of being in a cohort like a young person might get when they go to college, that feeling of community and learning and growing together. And I just think that's so incredibly valuable, just on so many levels, the belonging and the evolving with other people and making probably lifelong friendships.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And these are folks who probably wouldn't have had that, any kind of opportunity like that otherwise. So I just applaud what you're doing wholeheartedly. So how has you kind of touched on this, Tripp, already. How has your work affected you personally, Steve?
Well, when Julie and I first started Josh's Hope, we felt that it was a way to distract ourselves from the nightmare of what was going on, and to help us deal with our grief. And I think in the beginning that was true, but over the years, a broader perspective of what's going on or missing in mental health treatment has given us some new direction. If somebody told me 15 years ago that I would be the co-founder and director of a nonprofit, I would have laughed. If I'd been told that I would be making presentations and begging for funding, I wouldn't have believed it. But here we are. I never dreamed I would raise 3 boys with high-end disabilities that would lead me to be a part of so many other young adults' lives. And see how valuable, how they are truly valuable humans that have so much to offer if you just give them the opportunity. So my work has been life-changing. I am not the same person I was 25 years ago. I love engaging with our participants, and like Tripp, I love watching them succeed and encourage each other. I like knowing that they're here. It just gives me a nice feeling to see them here. So that sort of makes me feel like all the hard work's been worth it.
Absolutely. Tripp, do you have any follow-up to that, or has it all been covered?
Well, for me, it's, the work, the job, the everything. I mean, it gives participants a place to be, but it's given me a place to be too. We're all human. We all face all these issues on some level, and so, but sometimes we just get lost and not have a place. And this has helped me to belong to the community as well. So, you know,
Mm.
they're helping me just as much as I hope I'm helping them. So,
Oh, that's beautiful. And I have no doubt you're helping them a great deal. All righty. So to Steve again, how do you think Josh would feel about all the beautiful things that are being done in his honor?
Josh was an introvert. He was a very private person. And I think that he would not be comfortable with all of this and all the information we're sharing about him to strangers all the time. But on the other hand, he was a very compassionate person. He was always wanting to do something that would help someone else. And ultimately, that actually led him to be where he was the day he was murdered. But you know, he was the kid who went to Mexico to help build houses for poor people after high school, and just loved that kind of thing. So from that perspective, I think that he would be proud to know that he's made some impact like he has.
Mm. I didn't realize that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time because he was trying to help someone.
Well, I may have said that quickly. He had befriended someone he should probably not have befriended, and he was where he was because of that friendship.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, certainly if people have a place to be where they belong and they're doing positive things and they know that they can go and be uplifted, that structure and that feeling of place, just, I'm sure you're saving so many participants' lives and their souls, their esteem because of that.
Well, we certainly hope so.
All right. And Tripp, what kind of art do you create? I've kind of tipped our hand on that one a little bit. And what does it mean?
Yeah, so I'm primarily right now iron casting and steel fabricating sculptor, though I've done ceramics and stone carving in the past. They're kind of large totemic, temple-ish, semi-figurative sculptures, and you know, they're combined the theme that the individual being is the temple, and that the personality is the part that is the sacred part, the holy of holies, if you would. You know, it all kind of gets tied together with imagination and spirituality. And again, it's about being in the world, even though it can be philosophical and stuff, but it's more about being grounded in this world, because sculpture is so physical. So the process of welding, the process of casting is so ultimately real. You know, you put your hand in a pot of metal, you're going to burn it. So that point is the grounding aspect for me, but at the same time, it allows my imagination to fly. But with the art, I'm able to navigate my imagination, whereas during my psychosis, it was just everywhere. You know, there's no way to channel it. So the sculptures have not only helped to kind of guide that process and that energy, but it's also a lot of ways provided a narrative to a way to resolve the narrative that in the themes that popped up during my psychosis. And then it's about growth up and rooting yourself at the same time. So, you know, the sculptures, you know, I do a lot of almost fantasy masks, because I think our personalities are so connected with our imagination and stuff. So those are mainly the major themes that run through my work. That, and you know, the alchemy of taking raw materials and transforming it. And I had this whole philosophical we don't have time to go into it now. Treaties of could, like, for example, when it's right before a star erupts into a supernova, the last stable element that it produces is iron. So iron was once light. And so through the art and all that, I'm taking iron, and hopefully I can be a beacon. I was pretty bad off at 19, but I managed to build, get an MFA and build these sculptures. And so I hope that it can be a beacon in that sense. The sculpture becomes a star for somebody else. So it's returning the iron back into the heavens. So that's a real quick gist of the Gestalt theory behind. But also, it's a communal thing with iron casting, and it's a family. It's a coordinated event. It takes 20, 30 people to do it. It's definitely a brotherhood, sisterhood, family thing. So that's more or less what I do with my art. So.
Well, I love the word alchemy. It always sounds to me like there's a hint of magic to it. And your metaphor with the star and the iron, that's pretty magical too.
But the funny thing is I didn't get into alchemy because of metal work. I did it because I was reading a lot of Carl Jung's, the psychologist. The funny thing about the alchemy is that they use scientific facts and use them as analogies at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of magical, but it's all about the transformation and the power of our hearts and imaginations are the ones that change the iron to the good. So it's something, a traumatic event could become a very thing to raise society to the next level. So that's
right. And it's neat how your medium can take a very practical form with welding, or that profoundly creative form with your sculptures. And a question that's come up from one of our Zoom participants: do you help the participants of the program with job placements?
Well, the short answer is yes, when it's appropriate. Most of our participants are challenged to hold down a traditional employment situation. So everything we do at Josh's Open, I mean, every single thing, I think of as a garage business. So you teach somebody to weld, they can create things in their garage if they have to. We teach them woodworking, they can make cutting boards in their garage. We teach them beekeeping and chicken care and farming. And these are all things that they can do as a self-employed person and work when they are most able to work. So, and I've seen that come true for some of our participants. We have one young man in particular I think of right off that he moved away, and he and his father came back on weekends for special training, and he has started a garage business of making cutting boards and selling them in the community he lives in. So that when you say do we help them find employment, I think what we do is we create employment situation rather than go out and find. Now, that being said, we will help place people if it's appropriate and we can find something that is appropriate for them. What I'm not going to do is push people out the door to go to work for some in a job that I don't feel is appropriate for them to hold, just to get them out the door and say that I've placed someone. That's not the way we work. Sorry, long answer.
No, I think it's a wonderful answer, because of course mental illness and substance use are episodic. We have triumphs and we have relapses, and when I'm doing well, to have a skill that I can put to use any place, anywhere, that is magic. That's very transformative.
It is, and I don't see any place in any point and somebody who's still having uh, occasional or often having episodes into a job where they're going to get fired the first time they have an episode, which is not what we want to do here.
Wow. Well, I applaud that as well. All right. So moving right along, what inspires you to keep going when you feel discouraged? Either of you can take that first.
I'll go first. Besides the inspiration I get from just being here, which is something you should all be jealous of. I'm actually a part of some work groups with the Division of Health and Human Services, Mental Health Division, working to improve services in North Carolina. And before I started these work groups, before I became involved with them, I sort of had the mindset that we were out here working our tails off and people in Raleigh were making it harder for us, and that was their goal. Take services away and make it harder to get the ones we're going to leave there. But after working on these groups, I realized that there are some really great people in Raleigh working really hard to improve services for those with mental health challenges in North Carolina. So that keeps me going, just to know that there's these, that opens up a whole new window for me to look through when I'm thinking about mental health services in North Carolina. And I enjoy working with these people because they are dedicated to making services better. So that's what keeps me going.
That's wonderful.
Well, for me, I would say mine's a little different. Because one thing with the breakdown is that it's always stayed with me, even though I've managed to grow past it. So a lot of times I refer back to that as a pivotal point or something. But there was one moment when when I decided to let my parents take me to the hospital. We're in the car. I had on a Grateful Dead t-shirt with a Grim Reaper and a full moon. And it was about 3:00 in the afternoon and the moon was out and it was full. And for a brief moment, my parents weren't talking. The radio wasn't on. I could hear the hum of the tires and the world just stood still. And that moon, I just felt like it was telling me, all's not lost, this is not the end of things. And so a lot of times I relate to that experience and know that, I think more than not, the universe is merciful. It's hard to say that, but from my personal experience, when I've been in critical situations, but part of it was me making healthy choices, which is very difficult. But in the end, if I decided to get help or I decided to take any steps to better myself for the world, then the universe works with me. Not to say that I don't get discouraged. There's days when I don't want to get out of my bed and stuff. And the other thing is this may sound funny, but I grew up with the generation of Star Wars and stuff, and some of the ideals that are set forth, they still stick with me. And so there's this sense of purpose that through the journey, there's a treasure that can be attained that's, bountiful. And it may seem naive, but I really think that each of us have something deep within that we have to uncover that can be of extreme value to the world. And when I'm down or I'm critical or whatever, I try to, a lot of times I'll think of that moment when, and there was a couple other points in my life when the world just stopped and listened, or, So I tried to remind myself that, I know I've been dealing with it now I was 19, I'm almost 50 now. So I've come to understand the rhythms that my mind goes through. And so when I get in a dark mood or I'm getting frustrated and discouraged, I know it's transitory, and that, to drink a seltzer or take a nap or just tune off everything and go see a movie, then I know that in a few hours I'll walk out of it and then pick up the tools and go back at it. I try to, when I have the energy and strength, I try to stay active. And when I don't feel like I have the strength, then I'll rest. But a lot of times I'll just sit there and look at my sculptures, and oddly enough, a lot of times I'm like, can't stop, Tripp. This stuff's too important. And some of my sculptures are talking to me to some degree. But when I look at, and not to be egotistical and think I'm the best sculptor, but they literally give me a source of strength, especially the larger they get, because the presence is bigger. But I guess those are kind of things that pull me through, and I got a good set of friends and community and purpose. So, those are kind of what bring me out through the stuff.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me, especially the part about starting to understand the rhythms of your own mind, because I feel that too, that the ebb and the flow, the patterns that I go through, the telltale signs, if I'm getting cranky or my inner critic is getting too loud, I know it's time for me to rest. And you can just hang in there long enough, you will identify those patterns for yourself, but it's not easy. It's a lot of work.
A lot of times doing something physical like Tai Chi, or maybe I'm going to the studio and I'm just gonna make this one cut and I'm gonna go home. And then next thing I know, I'm working and I'm actually trying to work through it. So
yeah. All right. Well, we are a little bit past halfway through our show, so I want to wrap up the interview portion of the show, but we'll have plenty more time with Steve and Tripp, and we'll take any questions that we haven't answered thus far in just a few moments. Before we move to our video of the week, I want to give a big shout out to our heroes working behind the scenes, Wes Thomas on Facebook. Thanks for joining us, Wes, and being part of the Thursdays with NAMI team. And our intern, Paulina Mendez, who's in a short time made a nice difference on our chat box and on our team with NAMI North Carolina. Of course, thanks to Gail Pruitt and Gary Kreitz for always being there. And most of all, thanks to Steve and Tripp for spending your evening with us and sharing your expertise. All right, and I love when people save me effort. Steve suggested that I use their video for our video of the week, and I'm happy to do so. Here it is, Why Josh's Hope.
Too. So we got to route it.
Oh, I love routing. That's my favorite part.
Josh's Hope Foundation is really simply a place where a young adult with mental health challenges can come to have appropriate socialization, build confidence, build skills, and participate in programs that they may not otherwise ever have.
The reason we started Josh's Hope was in part to deal with our own grief over the loss of our son, Josh. And he struggled for so long with mental health issues and learning disabilities. It just put him in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. And we just felt it could have been avoided if we'd had some direction and had a program to send him to.
It's about meeting somebody where they are and allowing them the freedom and the comfortability and the healthy mindset to feel like they're able to accomplish something.
When we talk about tools for hope, we're not talking about carpentry or welding or culinary skills. We're talking about tools for success. And we know that our participants may not use those tools right now. So my hope is that someday, somewhere down the road, when it's time for somebody to accept their situation, that they can start using the tools that we provided to be successful.
Any kind of success that students have in the shop is going to build confidence in themselves. Everybody's a real person. They got a genuine beauty in them, and they're capable of creating beautiful things in the world that can ripple out.
When we started Josh's Hope, we said we are not going to have criteria that says if you are manifesting the symptoms of your disorder, we're going to kick you out. We're going to say, we're here for you. Come back when you're ready.
All our participants have a unique skill set. It's just giving them an opportunity to express that skill set.
If someone in my family asked me why Josh's Hope as opposed to any other program or no program, I think what I would say is there is an understanding and a commitment to and for or of young people that just doesn't exist in most places, very sadly, but it does here.
The hope in Josh's Hope means it's not over. The story will continue. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and we will just keep plugging on and offering hope, offering opportunities. The story never ends.
Well done. Well done. All righty. Well, thanks for sharing that video, Steve. That's very impressive and very informative. We do have several questions in our Q&A box. If you're not sure how to use Q&A, it's at the bottom, sort of towards the left of your monitor, the little Q&A icon. Type your questions there. It'll be magically delivered to us. First question up, how can listeners help Josh's Hope?
Well, there's a number of ways. You can always support us, not just through financial, although that's important, but also through volunteer work. Help us organize special events like workshops for our Family Hope group. A work day here at the farm. You saw some beautiful pictures of the farm, and a farm is a lot of work. So we accept volunteers for farm work all the time.
For maintenance of the buildings and stuff, and
that's right.
Rebuilding some of the stuff, and surface people have professional services that could help reconstruct stuff.
And I think the last really important thing that anybody can do to support Josh's Hope is spread the word. There are a lot of people out there that could use our services that we can't reach alone, and so spread the word. Let people know about Josh's Hope.
And where do I have to live to get involved if I'm in the right age group?
We don't really provide transportation, and we are located in Durham County. It's a Hillsborough address, about 8 miles north of the interstate through town. So, anywhere where you can reach it. The most of our participants come from Orange, Durham, Person, Alamance counties. We've got a young man from Wake County right now. That's very doable, and we make some concessions on how to help him with his travel. And we've had participants from Chatham County, and that worked out just fine also. So the easier it is to get to us, of course, the better chance you have of receiving our services. But everybody should contact us if they think there's any way that we can help them work out these issues. We will.
All right, wonderful. And the next question is from someone who knows what questions to ask. Her name is Julie Bailey. How does Josh's Hope individualize your approach to clients who might have the same or similar diagnoses, but are on a different cycle, have different levels of abilities, etc.?
That's a good question. Um, so the point is, for Josh's Hope, we don't have a start and an end date for the program. Everything is self-paced. We try to engage at first meeting, and we engage on different levels. It depends on how the new participant presents, and the programs can take anywhere. I mean, we've had one young man finish the program in 3 months and move on, and we've had some participants that were here for 2 years. So we don't push completion. We push engagement, and everything we do is self-paced. And if we need to stop and back up and do something off curriculum to help a participant move on, for example, we might have a participant that needs some math skills to be able to read a tape measure. We'll stop and we'll spend the time it takes to teach those math skills. If we have a participant that's having a problem with reading, we'll do everything verbally. So, you know, we meet each person, and I really hate saying this because I've heard it so much, where they are, but it's true. We do. So that's how we individualize the program for each person.
Okay, so there's no graduation at any point. It's all depending on the person's engagement and their needs. Is that right?
Well, each person has their own graduation. And as a matter of fact, in that video, you saw all of us standing out by the pond with our arms stretched out. And that was one of our COVID graduations. So we try to celebrate every person's completion, which is sort of misleading because after completion, if they're not able to find employment or be employed on their own, we continue to work with them and employ them here. Nobody leaves until it's time for them to leave.
Well, I'm sure that gives participants a wonderful feeling of security.
And that's another reason I hesitated when you asked how many participants we have, because our participants are not just the current students. Our participants are everyone we're still working with on any level. And that might be just coming back for the peer-led group support work on Thursdays, or coming for a special event, or just we're checking in with them from time to time to make things are going right. So we have a lot of participants if you look at all of them.
Sure, with different levels and different lengths of time when they've been involved. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
Next question is for Tripp. Are all of your metalworks iron, or do you use carbon, steel, stainless, or aluminum?
So I use mild steel, which I guess is carbon steel. I don't do much with stainless. I have cast in aluminum. I've done some welding in aluminum. I've cast in bronze, and then iron. Those are the main metal elements or types that I've worked with. So I've done both fabricating, welding, and the casting process of those. So.
Right. I remember one of the first times we spoke, Tripp, you mentioned you had been interviewed by an author who was on a journey. I think she was looking for a sunken boat or something like that. And she found you as like a
yeah.
expert. That was really neat.
That was Rachel Lance. I think her name's changed. She's been married now, but she was a PhD student at Duke, and she was on what was it called? Bioengineering. So she worked for the military to study like how blast impacts the body and stuff, and if it has armor. So her dissertation was basically trying to figure out how a Civil War submarine sank, because it was a mystery because of the how they found it and everything back in 2000. So she asked me to build a replica, and not a replica, a scaled version, so she could prove her theory of how they died. So
Yeah. So she blew it up. I take it.
yes, she wrote a book about it. And I'm in there for a few pages, and her description of me is quite funny and accurate.
Yeah, I really like that.
It's called Into the Waves. Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Into the Waves.
Oh, Into the Waves. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Rachel Lance.
So Tripp is an expert witness in that book.
I actually I helped to solve a Civil War mystery. So,
All right. One of many things on your resume. So let me see. I'm going to make a few announcements. We do have more time for questions. Please feel free to type into the Q&A or with Facebook the comments, and they will be delivered to us. Join us next week for a conversation with Johari Sharp. She lives with bipolar disorder and has survived many hospitalizations, many good and bad treatments, and she's come through it all with a lot of wisdom and depth. I know she's really a very impressive individual, a friend who I met in Ohio years ago. So I hope you'll join us next week to meet Johari Sharp. Please fill out our survey after the show completes. If you're on Zoom, SurveyMonkey will magically appear and ask 5 questions about our show tonight. It helps us keep our grant funding and let us know how we can improve over time. If you get the wrong survey and you see names that don't look right, you may need to clean your cache, something like that. I've gotten some feedback along those lines, but the current survey should say Steve Bailey and Tripp Jarvis, our 2 superheroes tonight's. If you'd like to be a speaker on Thursdays with NAMI, join us. Fill out the survey and leave your name and contact information. I will reach out to you as soon as I am able. And what other questions do we have? What gives you hope? Either one of you can take that.
Okay. You know, I'm a person that believes in miracles, and I've seen a lot of miracles here in the past 12 years. So you know, no matter how bad things get, if you believe in miracles, you can always hope for a miracle.
And I guess I could resonate with that because I felt it in my own self. But I think, you know, just seeing the possibilities. For instance, when I'm helping this participant and I see them struggling, I know I can see the next step for them to take. Sometimes all I'll do is tell them what tools they need and then figure out the problem. But since I can see them take that, see where they need to take that next step. If I come across a roadblock or some barrier for myself, I just have, I mean, the hope is there that knowing that if I can see them taking another step, maybe somebody else can see where I need to take. How do I get past that thing? And so I guess it's kind of always a, you know, I don't know. I think the universe is merciful in some degree. And ironically, I wrote a short story, and that was one of the themes, but it would take 15 minutes to tell it. So, but yeah, and you know, young folk, you know, my kids are in this age bracket. They're off in Europe studying and watching them grow and knowing where they came from. I guess having children, you see the long steady progression that people can make. And, if you can see how, someone's developed, then it can help be a model for, I just, knowing there's a path, I guess. I know there's a path. I might have to get out my machete and chop away through it, but there's a path. And I guess that's what, I know somewhere there's a way. So I guess that's what would be the cumulative point of hope. Because I found it when in the darkest places, I managed to find the path. And that's been, each time you do that, you get a little more fortitude to when the discouragement comes.
Well, next time I think of you, Tripp, there's going to be a machete in your hand. I just want to let you know that.
I probably should. Well, you can sign it. Well,
A comment from the chat box from Gail. Steve, I imagine many of the miracles you have seen comes from all of your hard work and belief in what you're doing. It really comes through. I think that's true for both of you. Next question is kind of fun. How did Steve and Tripp meet? Did you know each other before Tripp went to work at Josh's Hope?
I'm gonna give the first half of this story and then let Tripp give you the second half of this story.
yeah.
So my youngest son, who came, he and I were talking, and he decided he wanted to be a welder. So I went online and just Googled welding classes, and I found one at Liberty Arts, and applied and paid for it. And Isaac and I went, and Tripp was the instructor. And we got there a little bit early and sat down and started talking to Tripp, and I'm gonna let him take it from here.
Okay. So I actually, before I met Steve, I was aware of Josh's Hope because just a few years before that is when I kind of started my campaign to use art as a healing process. And so I was working with not to confuse it with Josh's Hope, but the Hope James Foundation. They funded the film and everything, but we were starting to look at ways that I could try to engage in that community. And I kept seeing Josh's Hope flyers. I said, I need to reach out to these folks sometime, and just see. So lo and behold, I'm sitting in, waiting for students to get there, and Steve and his son come in, and we're sitting down at the conference table because they're 15 minutes early, and we're just chit-chatting. And I said, so what do you do, Steve? And he said he had a Josh's Hope band, pulled it off and said, this is what I do. And I read it to Josh. I was like, man, I know about y'all. I've been meaning to reach out, And so him and Isaac did the class, and I think Evie was teaching too. I think
We later took a plasma cutting class from Evie.
Yeah. So we started to build a relationship between Liberty Arts and Josh's Hope, and then COVID hit, so we lost touch for about a year. And we didn't lose touch. I would occasionally, ask how the guys are doing and stuff, but after about a year, when we thought it was easing up, Steve reached out to Liberty and said he wanted to continue. And we got to talking, and he kind of mentioned that he needed a new program director in the shop. And I was like, is that a paid position? And he's like, yeah. And I said, I'd be interested in that, because I was thinking about going back to school to be art therapist and stuff. And a lot of people telling me, you've got the art knowledge, just team up with somebody who's got those skills. And so he interviewed me and decided he was going to take a chance. And that's how, that's how it's been for about, how long have I been here? 6 months? Has it been that long?
It was July.
July, yeah.
So I'll throw in, the interview was me asking Tripp why in the world would he want to come to work for a nonprofit that was going to overwork him and not pay him half what he was worth. So that, he answered that question right. So that was the interview.
Yeah, yeah. And I believe if I remember correctly, I said, well, it's because, I've experienced this stuff in my own life, and I think I can be of service, was more or less.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't imagine a better background or story to go with that job, Tripp. So, oh, comment from Julie. They are a good team. Yes, they are. That's coming through loud and clear.
We have a lot of fun too. We do a lot of hard work, but I think we have a pretty good rapport.
All right.
Things are good at Josh's Hope.
Very good. Well, we're got some time if another question or two shows up in the Q&A. Right now there's a lull. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess just as you're, like Steve said, going out in the world, let people know about Josh's Hope and not educate. That may be the bad word, but be involved, I guess, on some level, and helping just one person could ripple out into incredible ways. So just a small act of, even if you were, let's say, just to volunteer for a day at Josh's Hope, and you said something very inspirational, or said something that really impacted a participant or someone else, a family member, then the strength that instills, or that magic that could happen, could ripple out all out to the world. So one small, I guess it's the butterfly effect. They say, one small act could make a huge difference. And we need that in the world right now, so.
Yeah. I just thought of, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just thought of a question for myself. When I was visiting Josh's Hope, I got some honey and there were some wonderful candles. Where can I buy more of that?
Well, very soon. I took our store down online because we're reworking and refurbishing the store since January. We don't get any sales at this time of the year anyway. But very soon, in the next week or so, there'll be a brand new online store, and you get those things there. So we have soaps and candles and cutting boards and what we call a spa kit, which is homemade, not homemade, a custom-made cedar soap dish made here, and soap that's made here, and loofah that we grow here. Most people don't know loofah is not a sponge, it's a squash. And we grow loofah here and harvest it. And we won't have any honey up for a while. We collected about 60 pounds of honey this year, and it went quick. So honey will be back in June or July. Will be the next time that we harvest.
We're also making some steps to working with some other groups. We have a studio mate of mine that's setting up a studio in Mebane. She's got some window space, and she's going to set up there. I forget what her studio is called yet. She just is still in the process of renovating. And then hopefully, I had a really good conversation with Cecilia down at CC's Gallery, but that may take a couple of weeks before we're actually in there. But we're looking for spaces to partner with and get the merchandise out there.
All right. Well, that is good to know. I definitely want to know about that. Support from Marianne on Facebook. Very excited to check out Tripp's website and see the movie. And yeah, I think without any further ado, maybe we'll wrap up our show. Thank you again so very much for sharing your stories and all the exciting work that you're doing. I'm definitely going to be checking out your website to see what's available. That spa kit, nice comment in the chat, which I agree with completely. We all need a spa kit right about now, don't we? So thank you, Paulina, good thought. And remember out there, if you're struggling, you're not alone. I've been there. We've all been there. It may feel like you're alone, but please call our helpline, join a NAMI support group. Let us know what's going on with you. And we'd like to hear about it, and we'd like to talk to you. So thanks for being part of our conversation on mental health. And thanks for joining us to meet Steve and Tripp and learn more about Josh's Hope. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.